The point is that the relationship between criminal and detective and real life detective and fictional detective, they're actually a lot more blurry than we'd like to think. Most people want to sort of take them apart and consider them separately, but it might be more interesting to look at them as a totality.
One of the interesting things about like police and detectives in America is that they're political by definition, I would say. And every element of political life as humans know it is pretty theatrical and pretty symbolic. And it involves a lot of kind of performing a reality into being. So it makes sense to have this kind of symbiotic relationship with fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so here we are in, I guess, like early 19th century France, and kind of how does this idea spread? And is the detective something that like we just kind of didn't need, or that, you know, we didn't need kind of before society reached a certain scale, or, you know, the things we needed to protect reached a certain price point?
I mean, I believe a lot of this had to do with books. The fact that Vidocq published his memoirs that were then translated, and also that he had the attention of novelists like Victor Hugo, who based characters on him in Les Miserables, and those were translated. That meant that the idea of detective work and policing could be transmitted to other countries. So if the Sûreté, which then became a much more organized police force, developed over the 1830s and 1840s, and then eventually England takes this up and starts the Metropolitan Police and Scotland Yard. And in America, that comes in a little bit later. And all the while, you also have other novelists and writers. And that gets us into Edgar Allan Poe. And he comes up with this detective, Auguste Dupin, who, being French, I think is clearly modeled after Vidocq also. And he's essentially the first of this idea of the great detective who arrives on scene to try to figure out why somebody died or why this horrible circumstance has happened, and figures out usually something plainly obvious, but that is missing in plain sight is what actually was the solution.
Of course. I read a couple years ago the Murders on the Rue Morgue, if I'm getting all the prepositions right there. I don't think there's a wishbone of that, but there should be. And I was struck by how, like Watson and Holmes ended up being, it's like the great detective's described by his buddy. And that there's a scene kind of in the opening where Dupin is like, I see you're thinking about this. And his friend is like, oh, how did you know that? He's like, you saw this thing and it made you think of this thing and then this other thing and finally this thing. And the guy is like, you got me. And it feels to me like so central to the sort of idea of the detective, both the dream and the nightmare of the detective, is that somebody can just like know everything that's in your brain. When I think the reality that influences how much more difficult investigations can be than we want them to be, or kind of conclusively knowing the truth can be, is that like human beings are much more complicated and have more complicated and unknowable thoughts and motives than we would like to assume.